secret of mental efficiency. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome. Today, we will have a short talk on the subject of mental efficiency, from my perspective anyway. Say, you would ask yourself a question, what is mental efficiency? In this section, we will explain what we mean when we talk about mental efficiency. Like concentration of your mental energy, having a set purpose in life, having a self-conscious sense of self, and using affirmation for your advantages. And what it really means is stop hustling backwards and get your act together. In this section, we will discuss the mental second wind. We all have seen someone we thought was out of the race, and all of a sudden they get a new source of energy. This is called the mental second wind. Are you an unusual, persevering, and persistent person? Or like most of us, do you sometimes find it difficult to stick to the job until it's done? Or do you work steadily along until all of a sudden you become conscious of a feeling of weariness, crying, enough for the time being, and you then yield to the impulse to stop? This is usually all of us. Assuming that this is what generally happens, does this feeling of fatigue, this impulse to rest, mean that you or your mental energy is exhausted? But suppose that by determined effort of the will, you force your lagging brains to take up the thread of work. There will invariably come a new supply of energy. It's called a second wind, enabling you to forge ahead with a freshness and vigor that is surprised after the previous lassitude. Men who work with their head and men who work with their hands, scholars, marathon runners, boxers, must alike testify to the existence of a reserve supply of power, not ordinarily drawn upon the lasting of the necessity or the spur of love or ambition. Men and women have accomplished a feat of mental and physical endurance of which they would have supposed themselves incapable. If we do not always or habitually utilize this reserve power, it is simply because we have accustomed ourselves to yielding at once to the first strong feeling of fatigue. Can't take it no more. Most of us have reserve of power, stored up energy. Not in use has been given a name by scientists or scientific men. They call it potential energy. In this way, it is distinguished from kinetic or circulation energy, by which is meant energy that is at work. For example, a barrel of oil contains a certain amount of potential energy, which is capable of being converted into kinetic energy or combustion. You have a vast amount of potential energy over and above that we use. But we have formed the habit of giving up trying a thing as soon as we have spent the usual amount of effort on it. And this is whether or not we have accomplished anything or not. In such instances as we have recounted, I have found that persistent effort along certain lines has had the effect of making presently available that which could otherwise be unused storage battery of reserve power. What was the source and inspiration for the persistent effort? You would say it was ambition or patriotism or some similar semi-emotional influence. But what is ambition and what is patriotism? What is any desire but a picture into the mind's eye of the things desired, an awakening of a mental image of the result to be obtained? The rewards that is to follow certain efforts, and these mental pictures coming into consciousness have brought with them their association emotional and their association impulse to have a muscular action. These impulses constitute the whole of man's achieving power. They are the initiative energy of all success. How often in a battle have the failing of an army been revived by the appearance of the leader, shouting his battle cry? We all know it, been there, done that, waving his weapon. How often have troops spent with exhaustion respond to the call of such simple phrases as the flag, our country? These texts are signs of ideas, yet the sounding of these phrases has summoned these ideas into a consciousness. And the summoning of these into consciousness has placed undreamed of and unmeasurable amount of pressure on the hair trigger of any kind of weapon. So you see, my friend, down deep in the innermost chambers of your soul are an untouched amount of energy that's properly applied will jumpstart or change your career. But to find and claim these hidden riches, you must preserve. You must endure. In a marathon race, it is endurance that wins, most of the time. The grateful sprinter who is off with the leap at the bark of the pistol, soon fall by the wayside. If you are to succeed, if you are to do big things, you must be a man of doggedness. You must keep your eyes on the prize. You must keep your eyes trained everlasting upon the vision of the thing that you want. You must be in the race until you get your second win. You must be the master of yourself and draw freely on your stored up powers. Read motivational books, listen to tapes, and you will become the kind of person you were put on this earth to be. The kind of man or woman, who work his imagination overtime. The kind of person who can strain his energy to the utmost and then find himself still a failure, can rise like the glow of the sun to do bolder and bigger things. The kind of man who wins. That's the type of person we're talking about tonight. And we will continue this discussion later on. Thank you for now.